Way back in August of 1883, one single tiny island in the Dutch East Indies just unleashed a fury so incredible it sent shockwaves, and I mean literal shockwaves, across the entire planet. So today, we're going to break down one of the most violent natural disasters in all of recorded history, the cataclysmic eruption of Krakatoa.
You know, that isn't a line from some disaster movie. That's from the official scientific report written years after the fact. It just perfectly captures the pure, helpless terror of that moment. For the people living on the shores of the Sunda Strait, the world didn't just get loud, it went completely dark, right before it was literally wiped off the map.
You have to understand, before anyone could piece the whole story together, the world was just gripped by all these baffling events. For people who were thousands of miles away, the mystery didn't start with a bang. Oh no. It started with a series of strange, unsettling whispers from the planet itself.
What's really incredible is how disconnected all of this must have seemed at the time. I mean, think about it. Over in India, the sun is looking green. In London, the sunsets are so spectacularly unnaturally red that artists are literally rushing outside to paint them. And then, in labs all over the world, these sensitive instruments are picking up invisible pressure pulses in the atmosphere. Nobody knew that these were all echoes of the exact same singular cataclysm.
Okay, so now let's trace all these mysteries back to their source, a small volcanic island in the Sunda Strait called Krakatoa. After kind of simmering for months, it was about to enter its final, absolutely terrifying phase.
So this wasn't just one single event. It was this devastating crescendo building over hours. Can you imagine the terror of that night, just hearing constant deafening explosions? But that was all just the prelude. The blasts at 5:30 and 6:44 a.m. were massive, sure. But the one at 10:02 a.m., that was the one. That was the big one. The paroxysmal blast that blew 2/3 of the island into oblivion and sent a signal clear across the planet.
In the immediate area, the world just ended. So much ash and dust were thrown into the sky that midday turned into absolute pitch-black night. The sea itself became this thick, floating graveyard of volcanic rock, so dense that ships couldn't even force their way through. It was a scene of just utter apocalyptic desolation.
The explosion didn't just remake the local landscape. It produced what is still considered the loudest sound ever recorded in human history, a sound so powerful it left two completely distinct fingerprints on the world.
So first, we gotta understand this idea of the airwave. This wasn't just a sound you could hear with your ears. No, this was a physical compression of the atmosphere itself, a totally silent shockwave that radiated out from Krakatoa like a ripple in a pond, except the pond was the entire planet's atmosphere.
But people did hear it, at a staggering distance too, 3,000 miles. Just try to wrap your head around that. That's like an explosion in New York being clearly heard as the roar of heavy guns all the way over in London. It had never happened before, and it has never happened since.
This table really lays out the two different ways that sound traveled. You've got places like Rodriguez Island and Ceylon where people physically heard the blast. But then you have cities like St. Petersburg and London, way farther away, where the sound was completely inaudible. And yet, their scientific instruments, their barometers, jumped, recording the passing of that invisible airwave.
And this is just, it's mind-bending. The wave was so powerful, it didn't just fade away. It traveled all the way around the world. It passed through the antipodes. That's the point on the globe, exactly opposite Krakatoa. And it just kept going. Barometers recorded its arrival, its return from the other direction, and then its second, third, and even fourth pass. It was an echo that lapped the entire planet for days.
But all that explosive energy didn't just go up into the air. The collapse of the volcano into the sea displaced a colossal amount of water, creating one of the deadliest tsunamis in all of history.
We're talking about waves that were reportedly over 100 feet high in some places. I mean, they didn't just flood the coast, they scoured it clean. Entire towns were simply washed away, their foundations ripped right from the earth as this wall of water just moved inland for miles.
This line from the scientific report, it just has this chilling finality to it. For some of the hardest-hit towns, like Anjer, the wave was so total in its destruction that there were 0 survivors left to even describe what happened. The historical record is just silence.
And much like the airwave, the energy from this sea wave traveled across the whole globe. Now, it wasn't a destructive wall of water anymore, but its pulse, its signature, was detected by tide gauges thousands of miles away, across the Indian Ocean and all the way to the English Channel. It's just a testament to the immense energy that was released at the source.
But you know, maybe the strangest and most long-lasting echo of Krakatoa was the one that played out not on the ground or in the sea, but in the skies above the entire world for years.
The sheer variety of these optical effects must have been so baffling at the time. See, the eruption had blasted billions of tons of fine ash and sulfuric acid aerosols way up into the stratosphere, far above all the weather. This high-altitude dust cloud acted like a planetary filter, scattering sunlight in all these bizarre and beautiful ways.
And this wasn't some minor effect people were seeing. In London, the sunsets were so vivid and otherworldly that an artist, William Ascroft, felt he just had to paint them, creating both a scientific and an artistic record of these Krakatoa sunsets. He was literally capturing the visual evidence of a volcanic eruption that had happened on the other side of the planet.
And this effect just lingered. The dust cloud, carried by high-altitude winds, circled the entire globe in a matter of weeks. The spectacular glows reached Europe and America by November, and they didn't fully fade from our skies for more than 2 years. The volcano itself was long silent, but its shadow remained.
So you've got to wonder, right? How could anyone in 1883 possibly know that a green sun in India and a blood-red sunset in London were connected to a volcano half a world away? Well, the answer lies in one of the greatest collaborative scientific investigations ever.
The Royal Society, which was Britain's top scientific body, they realized something absolutely unprecedented had happened. So they assembled a committee of experts, a dream team of geologists, meteorologists, and physicists, and gave them one goal: solve the mystery of Krakatoa.
And their method was just groundbreaking for the time. They essentially crowdsourced global data before that was even a term. They put out a call in the newspaper, asking for anyone, anywhere, ship captains, colonial officers, amateur weather watchers, to send in their observations. Then they systematically collected and analyzed every last bit of it, creating this complete, holistic picture of the event.
And that right there is the ultimate takeaway. Krakatoa was so much more than a disaster. It was a planetary-scale experiment. For the very first time, science treated the Earth not as a collection of separate regions, but as a single, dynamic system where an event in one place could have measurable, predictable effects everywhere else. It fundamentally changed how we study our world. Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Back then, they used barometers and eyewitness accounts to track Krakatoa's echoes. But what would we see today? With GPS, with satellites, with global sensor networks, what subtle, invisible ripples might an event of that magnitude send through our planet that we aren't even equipped to imagine yet?